Hi everyone. In the first part of our new series, Mending the Divides, I made the point that language really matters whenever we're discussing a subject that involves complexity and nuance and sensitivity. There wasn't time in that talk to unpack some of the key words and phrases around the subject of race. So I thought I'd have a go at recording a quick 4.5-minute whistle-stop tour of some of the key words that I've been thinking about. It's not meant to be a comprehensive guide, just a few quick reflections that get the conversation going and hopefully help you to feel more comfortable talking about this subject. First up, Black Lives Matter, the slogan that summed up the cultural moment last spring. And although over time it was perhaps politicized, became associated with a particular political position, I believe the sentiment of this phrase is one that I, as a white person, and as a follower of Jesus, can wholeheartedly agree with. It is not saying that all lives don't matter, but that until Black lives matter, until they matter as much as white lives or any other lives, then we can't truly say that we value all lives equally. This phrase is primarily about addressing an imbalance and an injustice. Secondly, systemic racism. This is about the way that systems and structures discriminate and determine the life experiences and opportunities that people have. And although those inequalities are not normally acted out with any explicit criteria around race, the layers of inequality and disadvantage inevitably lead to a reinforcing of differences along the lines of color. This term systemic racism is really important for those of us from the white majority to wrap our heads around, because we seem to have this inner defensiveness around the topic of racism, where our gut instinct is to take it personally and to say, but I'm not racist. That's an instinct that has been coined white fragility, and I highly recommend Robin DiAngelo's work on that subject. She illustrates how it is perfectly possible for you as an individual to not be racist if your definition of racism is that you think less of people of color or discriminate against them somehow, while still being part of a system that causes or allows people of color to feel discriminated against. That's systemic racism. The next term is white privilege. Again, an important one for those of us who are white to grapple with. And I think it's important to recognize what it is not saying. It is not saying that white people don't face difficulties or disadvantages, that we all live privileged lives of wealth. All it is saying is that the color of our skin has most likely not been a factor in those difficulties or disadvantages that we face. A conversation about race doesn't detract from the need to talk about other inequalities or about the role that class or gender or socioeconomic status can play. Next is woke, a term that means being awake to or aware of social injustice, normally injustice associated with race. It has become associated with kind of a left-leaning and liberal political position, but I only mention it here to say that being woke or being seen as woke is not our goal in this conversation or this series. Our goal is to better understand the issue and to contribute meaningfully through our actions towards making things better. Color blindness. A common response to discussing this topic, particularly as white people, is to say that we don't really see color. Perhaps we've been raised to genuinely believe that our color doesn't define us and that it shouldn't be the basis for judgment or discrimination. The problem with this attitude or this thought is that it simply doesn't line up with the lived experience of our black and brown brothers and sisters. Instead, the author Ben Lindsay argues that we need to move towards color consciousness, where we respectfully and openly recognize our differences and the way that they impact our relationships. Or as one Latino pastor in America, Carlos Rodriguez, puts it, I see no color is not the goal. I see your color and I honor you. I value your input. I'll be educated about your lived experiences. I will work against the racism that harms you. That should be the goal. And finally, anti-racist. This year, many of us have learnt the difference between being not racist and being anti-racist. That it is not enough and it's not really effective to say that color doesn't matter to us or that we don't have prejudice. But in recognizing the lived experience of people of color and in wanting to contribute towards racial justice, My position needs to be not just one of sitting on the fence or claiming neutrality, but of challenging, of speaking out whenever I see racism raising its head or being played out. And with that, our whistle-stop tour of terminology is at an end. I do hope there's been one or two helpful thoughts for you in there.